Hey guys, we are live. So hello friends, good evening and welcome to the fifth episode of our Instahyre Roundtable. I am Sarbojit. I'm the co-founder at Instahyre, and today's roundtable is a very crucial one because we'll be discussing a very pertinent topic in today's scenario, which is learning and adoption of new technology, which is the secret sauce to onboard and retain talent. Okay. So before we start it off, let me introduce and talk about like Instahire and what we do and about this roundtable. So a brief, we help companies to hire quality talent, which is 10 times faster and better using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other technologies. Our product helps top technology companies in the world to make that crucial hire. So Instahire is used by 10,000 plus companies, and we serve around 35 million candidates on a regular basis. Instahire Roundtable is an interesting concept. It's a forum where we have leaders come together, discuss the present and future of the best technologies and practices about hiring, learning, sourcing, and the future of work. So today we have a stellar panel of experts from companies like Genpact, Harness, and Zepto. So, without much ado, let's start with a quick introduction. So, we'll start with Shalini. You can go ahead and introduce yourself and about the Genpact to the community.
Thanks, Sarbojit, and thanks for having me here. My name is Shalini Modi. I lead employee experience and learning innovation for Genpact. Exciting time to be in the talent transformation space. As you all know, the world has really gone through unprecedented amount of change over the last couple of years, and so I look at how do we connect the dots between knowledge and learning and linking it back to the end-to-end employee engagement. Happy to be here and look forward to speaking to all of you.
Okay. Uh, Thank you, Shalini, for being here. We have Rajdeep. Rajdeep heads the talent acquisition at Zepto. So, over to you, Rajdeep.
Yep. First of all, thanks, Sarbojit and Mayank, for bringing us together. I think super opportunity, amazing to be here. So I head talent acquisition for Zepto. Zepto, we're one of the fastest growing startups in India today. Started last year. We are basically into grocery delivery. So we're pioneering the 10 minutes grocery delivery concept in India. So yeah, so currently I'm handling both tech and non-tech hiring for the organization. Last 10 months, build. I mean, we from almost about zero to we are currently about 1,300 people in the organization. So yeah, looking forward to interact.
Great. Thank you, Razi, for joining in. And we have Joseph. Joseph is the Global Director of Talent at Harness. And Joseph joins in from Dallas. So over to you, Joseph. A brief about yourself and about what Harness is doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. My name's Joseph. You can call me Joe. I'm global director of talent acquisition at Harness, overseeing most of the R&D hiring across the world, and also marketing hiring. So, if Harness is a software delivery platform, we build tools that help software engineers and software engineering teams deliver software with more velocity. And we've done a lot of growing over the past couple of years. So yeah, happy to share some of my learnings here, and thanks again.
Great. It's wonderful to have you guys here. And with that, let's start it off the fifth episode of the Instagram Roundtable. The first question which I have is for Shalini and Rajdeep. So, how does learning and support for learning help in a more engaged workforce? So, especially for professionals, TA and LD professionals, like who are the first point of contact? How do you think learning and support for learning helps in getting a more engaged workforce? So, Shalini, you can start.
So, Sarbojit, it's a pretty loaded question, but a very relevant one, I must say, right? And in the like I said, I think we are in a time of unprecedented change and digital transformation. Every company is either a technology company or they don't think about it yet, but they are one or they're becoming one, right? And so what's fundamentally changing, and a lot of it has been brought about by the fact that tech, data, digital has become faster, better, cheaper. Cloud, AI, technologies have evolved and matured and at a place where everything is now solving real problems, right? And so
Exactly.
when you think about the backdrop of this macro environment and the pace at which things are changing,
Mm-hmm.
what's really changing is what people do, what they work on, and how they do it, right? How they work. So think about somebody who's in a bank's, back office or even middle office, and a lot of work that they were doing manually is all getting automated, is all getting digitized. They need to increasingly make more and more decisions with data. They need to understand RPA. They need to understand, and not only that. If you then think about people who are in tech, let's say think about a data scientist, they
Mm-hmm.
might be great at producing the best looking reports and data, but unless they understand storytelling, unless they understand banking as a domain, they
Mm-hmm.
cannot actually make any sense out of the data that they are producing. So increasingly what we're seeing is, and especially this is more true from where the world that I come and I interact with a lot of Fortune 500 clients, people need to broaden their skill profile. So everybody does something which is part of their day job while they need to do that better. And traditionally, all the learning and development across organizations has been focused on just training and courses to do better what you know and get deeper into it, right? Which I called almost I-shaped skills. But increasingly for today and tomorrow's problems, different people and teams need to come together. And therefore, interoperability of skills is very, very important. So an operations person needs to understand data, digital design thinking, and a data person needs to understand domain, industry, and storytelling. And unless you start building these almost T-shaped skills, you are not going to be able to come together and collaborate and understand each other and actually solve problems. And the rate at which skills are changing, I think the half life of skills is just reducing at an exponential rate unless it is all done in a manner which is not L&D taking people to training courses and doing it, but it has to be human centered design where employees can do self-paced journeys on their own, take control of it, and do it continuously in the flow of work. It is no longer sustainable. So I think two or three key takeaways that I would like to leave the group with is one, building more interoperable and T-shaped skills, putting employee at the center of it and making sure it is done in a manner where employees can do it by themselves, and then not just do it in a broken manner but do it in a continuous manner in the flow of work, because that's the only way to scale and sustain.
Great. And Rajdeep, how important is it for the takeaways which Shalini has told for the TA professionals, which are the first point of contact and represents the company?
Yeah, I think super important. How I look at this is recruiters. I mean, of course, I mean, at the end of the day, they also look at certain bit of learning when they come in, right? And uh, it's very very essential for an organization with a kind of a growth mindset, right? To upskill and reskill uh, any employees. I mean, that even goes with recruiters. Um, when we do recruitment, I think there are certain skills that can be taught, and there are of course certain skills a recruiter brings in when he or she comes in and joins the organization.
Mhm.
In a startup, for example, in the last maybe year and a half, what we have realized is that the pitch, the initial pitch when a recruiter is making to a candidate is super duper important, and uh, whether you make or break is something that the pitch decides. Um, we have, of course, we have learned that in the last 1 year, that how important is that. And I think a lot of time we have seen, if you train, and if you train these recruiters in how to make an effective pitch, really really helps. And we have seen, especially at a leadership hiring, it's super important, super essential. So I think it is very very critical. And not only that, there are several other aspects, right? I mean, where you basically upskill a recruiter in terms of increasing capability, in terms of sourcing capability. There are multiple techs tools that's coming in the market, especially post-COVID situation.
Mhm.
And what is more important is that now that the talent pool has pretty much opened for us, we are not constrained only to one geography. We are looking at talents across the country, across geographies. Um,
Yeah,
you have to ensure that you have certain tools that you use to reach out to the right talent, to basically enhance your capability of reaching out even to the largest distance, right? So I think, yeah, I would completely agree with Shalini, what she just said.
great. Thank you, Rajdeep and Shalini. So, Joe, I had a question. So, how do you think this learning and development initiatives can also be used to attract good talent, right? So, you see that new technology is changing the course, how we do business, how we talk to others, how we interact, and how we consume content. So, offering these courses or like helping new guys who join in or the guys who are already there to just get one level up before joining also, how do you think that this can help in attracting the best talent?
Yeah, I really like Shalini's point about I-shaped skill sets versus T-shaped skill sets. And I think oftentimes we think about learning and development and different programs like this as a benefit for the company. I'd like to say my part in shifting that mindset and really focusing on the individual that you're hiring and letting them know that they have mobility around the company and they have the opportunity to shape their skill set at your company, whether that's in the skill set that they currently have and that you hired them for, or in a completely different skill set. I think that's got immense value to not only attracting talent but retaining talent, which is an increasing problem for all companies. So if you can keep a mind in motion that's working for you and get them to the next level and really invest in that person, then I think you're going to create a loyal employee, an employee that will do more for you within their core skill set, and then outside with the interconnectivity of other groups, or maybe it's something completely different that's irrelevant to their role or position at your company. I still think that that's got value because you're really starting to focus on investing in the individual.
So, Sarbojit, I think you are on
You're on
mute.
mute. Yeah.
But if I can
Okay,
just
sorry.
chime
Yeah.
on add on to what Joe just said, right? He made a great point about connecting learning with progression and growth. And really, the employee value proposition has to stem from there. And while traditionally learning has been thought of business and domain and what you do, right? Your core job, increasingly how you work with people in asynchronous ways of working, hybrid working, using the collaboration tools, solving problems, in remote places and hybrid models. Increasingly, I think that's also become very, very important and something that is either very attractive to an employee that they want to go work for a company because it allows them the flexibility of one being working from anywhere and still be effective and also feel included. So I would just say that even I would that broaden that to say that, just the nature of training is no longer just about what you do, but also just how you do in ways of working, which is becoming super important.
Right.
Yeah, and also another point
Hmm.
to add is that I think when you look at recruiting, a big element in recruiting is how sustainable, when you talk about sustainability, right? So you look at a longer run. It's not about that you hire a talent, you just look at for the next maybe 6 months or 1 year, but you have to create a sustainable talent pool from where you uh, can churn out talent internally as well. And I think this mobility is very, very essential part of creating that sustainability.
Hmm.
And if you actually see when you actually interview a person, when a person leaves in an organization, typically the person would say that, hey, I'm looking at more challenges. I'm looking at a different kind of an experience. I'm done with what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you actually, if one can create that through an L&D, right? If you can basically create a robust, effective mobility program in an organization, why would an employee leave? Uh, the employee would leave the current role and join another role within the organization. So in that ways, I think retention is pretty much high through L&D. I mean, you can create that sustainability.
So the next question is very related to what Rajdeep said, like creating sustainability plus creating a culture of learning within the organization can also help retain talent. So Shalini, I wanted your view on this. How can L&D or learning and development be leveraged to create better employer branding and a learning of culture? So what about this?
I think it's a fantastic time for learning professionals because there is so much happening in the space and so much shifting in the space, and there is so much more acceptability of that. That's fantastic time first for them themselves to get upskilled
Hmm.
and start thinking differently about their own role, right? So typically the traditional L&D organizations and the way work used to happen within the learning teams was around training needs identification, creating cohort based training courses, then communication and kind of getting people to really come to those trainings, and then do some sort of assessments, and then they kind of walk away, and there is no way to say one repeat it, rinse and repeat, right? You every time you have to do it, you have to do it again and again and again,
Hmm.
and then there is
Hmm.
no way to kind of sense and get that impact of how is it translating to business outcomes, right? So it's been a model that has worked in past, but the model that we see working today, and at least increasingly I hear more and more companies moving towards it, and COVID has only accelerated that, is to say, can you establish, let's say, a skill taxonomy for your company that is relevant for you? Out of all these so many different millions of skills, what skills are relevant for my company today and meets the strategy of my company?
Hmm.
If I know that, can I actually create a skill inventory of all employees to say who knows what? And then based on that, there is automatic guidance to learners to say, hey, here is the gap for your role, the skills that are needed, here is the gap, go learn it on your own. So L&D, instead of the person to create the training and course and identify the need, should actually be helping design the systems, helping
Hmm.
design the taxonomy, helping design the these, looking at the skill inventory, looking at the data to say what is needed by the business. So get more closer to the business strategy. What is needed by the business? Who needs to learn what? And who is learning what? And almost make it a virtuous cycle, then people can keep doing it on their own in their
Hmm.
flow of work, as opposed to saying, I am the person who will pull you and do it. The fact that everything has become digital, almost all the assessment, the fact that there is so much great content out there, right? Even YouTube and MOOCs and free resources, plus there are content platforms, there are learning platforms. It's almost a child's play there, saying you pick up the right Lego blocks, put it together, and create a learning strategy for your company where an employee can get the guidance to say, for my role, let's say for a recruiter that Rajdeep talked about, a recruiter actually would need to understand the business little bit better to understand even the JDs and the requirements better. They would to need to know a little bit about what are the keywords that are even coming up. They would need to understand the industry domain. They would need to understand or get skills like, for example, negotiation skills, right? Influencing skills, growth mindset. So how do you create those role based skill paths really, and have employees automatically take them, and in the process actually bringing people together to learn from each other? I think that's another interesting trend that we are seeing, that no longer is that passive learning important to say, I go to a training course, come back. For example, at Genpact, what we have is a system where people, based on their roles, undertake their learning journeys. At the end of it, they have an
Hmm.
assessment where they apply the learning to their real project, to the work that they are doing. And there are peer reviews where people, learners, are peer reviewing each other's work. So not even like a teacher or a trainer or L&D person coming in and assessing, but it's a self sustainable model which just keeps working and keeps scaling. And people love the fact that they learn from each other's work, right? So I think, again, going back to saying guidance to learners to say what to learn, how to learn, and then making decisions based on data and analytics to track the progress, and trying to bring people together to learn from each other is what we are seeing as a very, very different shift. And therefore L&D, instead of being the creators and people who become executioners, they are becoming more of closer to business strategy, take decisions with data, and see what's working and what to change.
Great. So that was very, very valid points made by Shalini. So I want to move to Joe and Rajdeep. So there are like couple of things which I want to ask is basically, see, there are two things, culture and employer branding, and they are almost integrated. With the advancement of new technologies, adoption of new technologies, how can companies leverage this? So Joe, you can start off, and then Rajdeep, you can have your points. So Joe, how can new tech or new technology can leverage like culture and employer branding?
Yeah, I think again, sort of maybe the old way of thinking about learning and development within the lane of the company and the career track that an individual is in is kind of uh, fading away quickly, as Shalini kind of alluded to. So the ability for the employee themselves to drive their own learning and development, we have the technology to do that today. Oftentimes it's free.
Mhm.
And you can explore, you can learn about anything you'd like over the web. um, I really think it's important for leaders around the company to support individuals in their own unique learning and development paths, to really create that culture of learning and support, and having a people centric um, organization, which is easy to say that you have, and it's very easy to list benefits and perks that are tangible, right? It's much more difficult to actually have a people-centric culture, and I think that's where learning and development takes us so far, and the technologies take us so far. I think they're super powerful. We can do a lot of things with them, but it's really the leaders around the company and the company culture that's going to be able to support that and make that individual feel like they are supported, back to the mobility of their own skill set and their own career, regardless of whether it fits within the track that you have them on currently, or not, right? I think it was Richard Branson once said, how does the quote go? You should train your employees well enough so that they could leave, but you should treat them well enough so that they don't want to, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. And I think that's something that leaders around the company should really ingest and think about, and take an honest look at. You should train and support your employees so that they can go and do whatever they want, but you shouldn't be afraid of them leaving, because you know that you're treating them so well, and you will continually support them, not only through the next level, but the level beyond and the level beyond. Why would somebody want to leave and go to the unknown if they know that they're going to have that type of growth and support in the seat that they're in today?
Great. So
Yeah,
very well.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and honestly, I mean, some stats around this, and not sure how true is this, but some global research reveals that it's just about 31% of business leaders would typically recognize how their learning efforts align with their business plan,
Hmm.
and only about 24% can articulate the value of learning in their organization. So, I mean, if you look at the percentages, I think it's not very encouraging, but there is a lot of scope, I would say, which is there. And again, in the US, I mean, this is something that Joe can kind of validate. Millennials, if you look at, for example, they value growth more than salary, um, with about 65% of them accepting their job because of development opportunities within the organization, right? And this
Mhm.
stat becomes even more significant when you consider millennials will make up to about 75 to 80% of the workforce by 2025. So I think there's a lot of opportunity that's there when you talk about, again, going back to the same thing, upskilling, reskilling, mobility programs. And of course, mobility programs is an inclusive part of recruiting. And it really helps the recruiting function to to basically build talent and homegrown talent within the organization, right? And then you can actually solve a lot of problems when it comes to some of the very difficult skills that you basically hire, and you go out and you spend maybe a 90 days kind of a time frame to hire that talent and bring them on board.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually maybe forecast, uh, do that investment much beforehand, and develop the talents. And in fact, there are a lot of organizations I know that they typically hire foreign languages in India. You say it can be a Mandarin, it can be a Spanish, it can be Italian. People are now thinking of creating an academy within the organization to basically teach foreign languages to employees. I mean, and employees can go in and actually learn Spanish and actually learn Italian, and I think that's basically future proofing your talent acquisition mechanism.
Great. So I want to ask Rajdeep. So talking about the academy, how important do you think this academy is for TA professionals also, where they learn new things and new tricks and trade?
It is super, I would say, super important because
Yeah.
I think in recruiting has become much more scientific today, right? and
Mm-hmm.
and it's no more okay, you just log into a job portal, you download a database, you start calling people. But I think using technology, using AI, and not only sourcing but also evaluation. Because if you look at, there are many tools which are available in the industry today, or in the market today, where we use AI to remove that subconscious bias in the entire interviewing process. I mean, and still there is a bit of subconscious bias in the interviewing process, and it will always remain till the time you have human intervention. And there are many organizations I know who are getting into, they've selected some of the job families which are getting into a no interview model, no human intervention model, hands off the wheel process, where they've built such a comprehensive assessment system that you don't need that talent to get interviewed by a human, and then you can directly hire that person through the assessment and then make an offer and onboard.
Nice. So, Shalini, I had a small question for you. See, we have seen that personalization is touted as the next big thing. So everything is personalized, like even your emails, any chat, anything you get. It's not if it's at all sent by a bot, it will also be personalized, right, to your things. So how do you think this can also be like personalized learning and development courses for each and every employee in the company can also help them improve them and also become one of the major retainers to retain talent?
Absolutely. And so, Sarbojit, one of the big challenges that's happening today in the market is that there are a lot of LXP platforms. And think about an LXP, the analogy that comes to my mind is almost a huge, big, massive library of
Mhm.
books where there are thousands and thousands of books. But once you enter that library, how do you know what to learn? Right?
Mhm.
And you leave a kid in the library, they'll want to go and pick up comics.
Mhm.
Is that what is best for them? Is that what they really should be going to the library for? Is kind of questionable. So there's a lot of edutainment in that sense happening when you just roll out a very large LXP with all kinds of courses, which keeps making recommendations, let's say based on AI, etc. Now
Mhm.
AI is great, but it has to be done in the right context, right? And so, at least at Genpact, the philosophy we've kind of adopted is that for every role in the company, right, and we have very very fine grained roles across the company. For every role, there is almost a skill profile that one needs to move towards. That's almost like we call it an ideal skill profile for every role, right? So may not be at an employee level, but almost at a role level, you have very clear guidance to say. And by the way, these skills are not just the skills that you know today, they are
Mhm.
making sure you're future proof, right? So if it's a manager or somebody who's stepping into a supervisory role, people leadership is one of the skills they need to pick up. If there is somebody who's in going to be in client facing roles, executive presence, client relationship, commercial excellence are those some of the roles, some of the skills that they will have to pick up for the role.
Mhm.
And every employee self assesses themselves. It's a trust based system. We don't get them into quizzes, etc., to say where do I feel I lie today? Where are my skills today?
Hmm.
And where should I get to? And this is the path that I need to take. And based on that, the learning recommendations and AI, etc., happen in the system to say, if this is where you are, or this is where you want to get to, start off. And by the way, again, this ideal profile is a guidance. It doesn't mean Shalini as an employee cannot add three more skills that she's interested in,
Hmm.
right? So we've kind of created that methodology to say every employee has a chance to self assess, but also know what is the guidance in that library, what is the shelf that they need to go and learn and pick up some of the books, right? And they can do it at their own pace. Some people will do it faster, some will do it slower. And then we link it to the incentive system across the organization, right? So the point about culture that we were making, you can't just now create yet another platform and create all of this infra and just let it be. The leaders have to talk about it. You have to recognize people who learn well. You have to recognize people who learn continuously. You have to see how do you link learning with growth and promotions and mobility, right? You have to make sure that all the opportunities across the organization always speak about that learning culture.
Hmm.
Our value system, for example, aligns to curiosity in a big way. So I think it has to be that all around approach, multiple ways in which you drive adoption of some of this. But to your point about personalized learning, like I said, the fundamental technology blocks content is all available. It's about
Mhm.
how do you align what an employee wants to learn and what the organization wants them to learn for now and for future and bring it together.
Great. So great points made by Shalini. So, Joe, wanted to ask you one thing. Like with the change in the scenario and this learning coming in, how can new tech tools be implemented to help in the new candidate engagement? And should companies also invest in L&D and learning of new tools?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that somewhat of a too prescribed course for L&D or a too company specific or dogmatic approach to it will, it actually puts a lot of pressure on the employing company to get it right for each individual. And at the scale that we're doing recruitment now, as Rajdeep and Shalini have both said, with AI recruitment and things like that, it's really impossible to set up a program that doesn't have any personalization, that's powered by technology, to capture enough of the market share of candidates that you will need to accomplish your hiring goals. So I think we need to lean on technology to help us personalize, because that personalization will really kind of leave the room in someone's mind for their imagination to take them to the next level by
Mhm.
their own design and not really by the company's design. Um, I learned a new word today from Shalini. Was it ed, edutainment or something like that? I guess so. I was kind of going down that path in my thinking with like allowing somebody to really personalize what they do. But I guess that's also a great point by Shalini. You don't want them necessarily using work time to pick up comic books or play video games. But I do think for the right types of people, if you leave that margin and you allow the technology to really surround the person and help them explore what it is they really want to do, then you're going to deliver value to that person and the candidates, right? Like, um, you will have success stories from your company of people who have made changes. I have one that I can share. There was somebody who was, I'll leave it somewhat anonymous, but there was somebody who was in like the kind of an administrative role, and for a few years wanted to get into another like more skilled area of work, and they were supported by the company and the leaders to do that. And today that person has moved into that role. So not only is it great for that person, not only is it great for Harness as a company, right? Because we've got a lasting employee and somebody who's very happy. But us as talent acquisition professionals can also take that specific story and turn that around into branding materials, whether that's through social media channels or in the conversations that you're having with people one-on-one that are interested in what kind of journey they can take with the company and things like that. I think that specific stories and examples are one of the most powerful branding tools that we can use in talent acquisition, um, because it allows people to put themselves in that person's shoes and possibly see how their career could be shaped, under your company and under your company's leadership.
Great. So, Rajdeep, thoughts about this? Like Joe had made like very very valid points about how all these things sums up. Okay, for a company. So, anything on this, Rajdeep?
Yeah, I think I can completely resonate with Joe what he said, because if you actually see in the last 2 years, we have all learned different ways of engaging talent, right? Our entire approach towards, how, and honestly, when you're recruiting is as good as marketing, because
Yeah.
if you need to create that solid employer value proposition. uh, there are hundreds of organizations hiring from the same talent pool. How do you position yourself so that you can route that traffic to yourself
Mm.
and to the top of the funnel? I think we have learned a lot of ways how do you use social media. And I think learning and development, like we discussed earlier, right? um, Millennials today, they look forward. I mean, compensation of course is there, but they actually look at an organization from where they can actually learn and look at a career. So how you project that, and the way we have been doing that effectively in the last couple of years, I think has been a big learning for all of us.
Great. And then do you think, Rajiv, that like talent acquisition professionals can actually pitch this as a competitive advantage, that we have a better learning culture and we have better learning versus the others? So that can be one of the things, like in this like in this phase when we have a lot of drop-offs happening throughout the tunnel. Okay, throughout the whole recruiting funnel. So do you think that this can be one of the competitive advantage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just going back to what Joe mentioned, right? I mean, um, employee VOCs, testimonials. We have, and a lot of organizations have been using these to attract talent, right? They are showcasing, and because when you go to the market and say that, hey, we have got amazing learning culture, you need evidence. You need to showcase testimonials. You need to showcase evidences to people. Uh, to bring that confidence. And I think we have been using that pretty effectively. And completely agree with that.
Great. Joe, so one question I have is, see, the employer branding and the culture is changing altogether. Like people are hiring from, like as you said before, we were discussing before the call. So you are hiring from all parts of the world, global hiring. Okay, and they have different cultures. Like in culture will be like they will do things differently. Okay, they're culturally different. So how do you think this can also be taught to the whole like the whole employee base, so that there will be a learning and development of the cultural values to respect diversity, respect culture? So do you think that can also be one of the advantages of companies? And also they have larger talent pool which they can tap, but this should be one of the major incentives, right? So the L&D in the company about culture and diversity.
Yeah, yeah. I think the global hiring at the sprawl that we're doing it now is something that I'm still learning about. It's something that's very interesting for myself and my teams.
Hmm.
Um, but there are common tenets among people, and I think it ultimately comes back to human psychology, right? There are sort of motivators that people have that are pretty common.
Hmm.
And I think learning and doing new things and achieving in one's career is fairly common between cultures. People want to do something better or more rewarding or more fulfilling than they did the time before. And I think that resonates across several cultures. I'm no expert, but I believe it to be true.
Hmm.
So one of the ways that I've done it, and some people on my team have pitched this, is when we're talking to an individual candidate, is when this usually happens, is Um, we'll pitch not only the job that we're trying to hire somebody into,
Mm-hmm.
but we will bring the person into the mindset of think about your next job, right? Already start thinking about what the next job you're going to take when you leave Harness, right? We're trying to hire you for Harness now, but this is where Harness can get you, you know? And whether that's the culture you have, the type of work that you have to offer people, right? Very common in startups for people to have very broad roles where they have to wear many, many different hats. And that sets somebody up, if they haven't done that before in their career, that sets somebody up for, kind of shaping their career in a different way, in an elevated way. So I think your culture, company culture, no matter what the country or region culture, can have that benefit across the board. And then sure, there are little nuances like figuring out all of the currencies and how often people get paid, how you hire people, how you do things. But I find the nuances between country to country just to be just that. They're just nuances. Everybody's kind of
Mm.
with a broad stroke, wanting them to move in the same direction, wanting to improve themselves, and wanting to do good things for your company most of the time.
Great. So, Jo, like, wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the future of L&D? Like, what will the future of L&D look like? And then I will come to Rajdeep about this. So, there are two angles to it. The first is L&D can help you to like upgrade yourself. Second is it's the need of the hour, right? So when everything is changing around you, and you see like there is a wave like Web 3. Companies are moving from Web 2 to Web 3, and there is a lot of things like NFT and DAO and all these things thrown into. Plus, when you see Rajdeep, when you see there is companies like experimenting in new business model. Example, as you see, Zepto is into quick commerce. They are the leader in quick commerce. Okay, what do you think that L&D will play a role to build the best global teams? Okay, in this kind of a global scenario. So I will go with like Rajdeep. You can start it off. So and then Joe, you can add.
Sure. So, very, very good question. I think um, a lot of if you actually see, there are a lot of organizations who are stepping into different business, and
Mm,
some of these businesses are absolutely unexplored. I mean,
mm,
and this is a new territory. It's a new model of business that we are all experiencing. And
mm,
honestly, for in Zepto, if we look at today, for every function, it's not only for the business folks, but for even us, every day is a learning.
mm,
Um, we don't know how things will react, how market will react, right?
mm,
We have started in the last 9-10 months. In fact, we have seen a huge, I would say, a huge shift from what we were maybe 8 months back and what we are today. I would say learning and development. We touched upon this point sometime back. Is that um, you do come across certain roles in the organization which will always have a high churn, right? And you basically struggle to keep that sustainability on for those roles. And learning and development, where it comes in, is basically to create that talent and build that talent internally. And you can actually create that mobility program within the organization for a longer run sustainability. And in fact, honestly, we are looking at some of the roles in the organization today which we can actually look at, maybe tying up with institutes and universities, where, let's say, who has these operations masters in operations, etc. And
mm,
you create that curated program which you go and you basically run maybe a 3 week or a 4 week kind of a program, and build that talent, that continuous talent supply. So I think L&D does play a big role, which can be used as an amazing tool um, uh, to 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 build and create that sustainable talent. And then, like I said, I mean, like you just mentioned, and uh, in a startup like this, for example, Q-commerce, it's a complete different subject in India. I
yeah,
mean, it's a complete different market that
yeah,
we are looking at. So I'm sure L&D is something is worth kind of spending an effort
yeah.
on.
Yeah. So also, I think Rajdeep, that will also help. So see, in 10 months, Zepto has grown from like say like a few people team to a 1,000 plus people team. So that space, like the creation of a very large company in very small amount of time will also have, like there are a lot of learnings which the other companies can also learn. So that can also be one of the topics. Like Joe, so I wanted to understand, like, see, harness is in the business of software, and software is like evolving every day. Okay, so all your like emailers or all your communication which we were sending say 6 months back will be obsolete, right? Because there will be new technologies coming in and you will be working on new technologies. So how do you think this change, the very fast change in software helps in L&D and in their adoption in L&D in companies?
Uh, yeah, I think it's almost a need, and we've talked about it. Talked about it earlier. The nature of work is changing, right? So if you look at everybody on this call, your job has probably changed massively over the
Yeah.
past few years. So even for the need of the hour, you need learning and development to know how to do your job that you've done for a while in the new world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we must embrace that piece of it, as well as just thinking about the future, and that, like, to your point, with software, and I would argue a lot of industries,
Mm.
that change will pretty much, it could be the only constant that you
Mm.
deal with. So we
Yeah.
have to be good at learning. As individuals, we have to be prepared to learn,
Mm-hmm.
or else we will begin to fall behind.
Mm-hmm.
And the companies that provide the technology, the support, the time, and so forth for individuals to do that, I think will reap dividends from that effort that they put in around L&D.
Yeah.
To Rajdeep's point, we have these roles in companies where there's a lot of churn, there's a
Yeah.
lot of turnover, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you will be like a kind of a hamster on a wheel refilling those roles
Mm.
should you not have the appropriate pathways for the individuals that you hire into those roles to traverse through your company and take on more and different responsibilities.
Mm.
uh, and it will say it, if you look at the macro side of things, if you lose those people in that layer or those pockets wherever it might be, um, you will suffer as a company because of it. Even if it's sort of a death by 1,000 cuts, you need to figure out how to take those champions and those people that joined your company for some reason and continue them to be interested and be supportive and be behind your company. So it's really, you have to set up these symbiotic situations between employee and employer, and that's kind of an intangible success metric of a company, I believe.
Great. So, closing thoughts, guys. We will move to the Q&A section where we have a lot of questions, but I will like filter it on and have like 10 to 12 questions for you. So, like closing thoughts, few pointers for our community members who are there in this call, and from Rajdeep. So, few pointers which we want to mention in this scenario to our community members.
Yeah, sure. So I think, uh, I mean, L&D, learning and development, I think a lot of organizations, and if you look at some of the successful organizations like an Amazon, like Google, you have learning as part of their leadership principles and
Yeah.
values. Right? Uh, and I would say a lot of thought definitely would have gone, they would have basically thought about it, and hence, that stands as one of the pillars in the overall values. Very critical, I think. Learning and development can be used, and of course recruitment. From recruitment, I think it's very, very essential for one to partner with your
Hmm.
L&D team, work out something which is sustainable, design, and not only for hiring but for yourself as well. There is a lot of technology, lot of tools which comes up every day in the market, and,
Hmm.
and I think it's super essential for a recruiter, for the recruitment team to be updated with the modern ways and the modern techniques of sourcing and retaining talent. And it's a never ending process, and learning itself is never ending. You keep on learning, you keep on picking up stuff which are new. And it truly, and in the last 2 years personally, if you ask me, I have learned a lot in the last 2 years, which has pushed me when we went remote, when we all of a sudden we were pushed to basically explore new things, new techniques. I think I have personally learned a lot in the last two years, I would say.
Great, great insights, Rajdeep. So over to you, Joe. Closing comments and key takeaways, what you want to highlight to our committee members.
Yeah. So obviously, a lot of talent acquisition professionals on the call and listening in. I would just encourage everybody on this call to explore their surroundings. Really, like oftentimes we forget, but talent acquisition serves as a connector for the company, right? And we get a unique view into a lot of different areas of business. Um, so, on your journey of learning and development, maybe, just pay attention and learn what you want to learn through the connections that you already have in the business that you already do, whether that's to improve in your current role, right? So maybe you're learning about a business you support for the benefit of your current role so you can understand a little bit more about recruitment, or whether it's learning more about recruitment itself and learning how to do that at scale and using the new technologies and techniques that might be out there for recruiting, because inevitably we're going to be asked to do more and do more efficiently. uh, that's been the theme for at least my whole career. So um, I'd just say that the possibilities are endless for your own learning and development, whatever direction you want to take that. So use your position within your company to develop yourself and have some fun along the way.
Great. Great insights, Joe and Rajdeep. So now we go into the second part, which is the Q&A part. So we have a lot of questions which were sent us by our members before the call, and right now also we are getting a lot of questions. So I will just like start it with one question, one at a time, and you guys, any one of you or both of you can answer it. So first question I want to ask, like, is from Amrita. Amrita asks that how important is framing job descriptions and tone of voice in JDs, and how can continuous learning help in this? So this is Amrita's question.
Joe, do you want to take it?
Yeah, I can take it. I think so. Tone within job descriptions is important.
Mhm.
It's often so it's the leading edge of your communication about the culture around your company. So it can do a lot to set the stage and really, you know, plant this seed whether someone is going to have a conversation with you or not. It's a very critical sort of stage in the recruiting and hiring process.
Mhm.
Um, so you know, I'm certainly not a language expert, but I know that there are tools and tricks out there that can help you soften your language or strengthen your language in places where you need to. And I would really, kind of work with the people from around the business to make sure that the job descriptions you're putting out there are representing your culture well. Um, you know, because you'll have a list of tangible benefits. You'll get a stipend for this. You'll get days off here. Those
Mhm.
are those are pretty much table stakes in the market. So I like the question and I like the thought around injecting the right kind of tone into the job description to really try and um, have that serve as the front line of your company culture.
And I
And
think
I
this,
think,
yeah,
and I
go.
think just to add, be inclusive.
Yeah,
So the I
yeah,
think,
that was
yeah. So that is something that I learned. I think, yeah, it's super important to be inclusive when it comes
yeah.
to the language.
Yeah, actually, like when you guys are hiring from all over the globe, so it's like the tone has to be modified for all the segments of society. So yes, that was my pointer on this. Second question I have from Minal. He asks that how does data science help with the adoption of new recruitment technologies, and how can we learn data science? Should we learn data science? So this is her question.
Yeah, I mean, data science, of course, I don't think we're going to use a Python or SQL in recruiting as of now. But I think data right now, I would say one can actually use like how you use consumer behavior for your business, you can actually use candidate behavior for recruiting. And there are, if you build, adopt a robust ATS, if you do the right integration with your ATS and HRMS, make both speak to each other well, you would get a lot of data that you can study. You can actually do your landscaping, talent landscaping, do profiling,
Hmm.
look at your success hires, look at which are not your success hires, draw a lot of correlations, draw a lot of, I would say, um, uh, you know, insights, right? So I think there is a lot of way, but I mean, Joe, if you want to add to this as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think data science can help with efficiency on both sides, um, right? Like sort of some of the tools that can be used, and I think data science can be extended over to the candidate so that they can better navigate the opportunities that you have, right? That job matching is, maybe it's a mistake, but that's kind of how I think about data science today in the recruiting world. And I think there's an opportunity for efficiency, um, really on both sides, the recruitment side and the candidate side, to finding the right match, having very efficient and directed conversations with people that might be a fit and might be, you know, actually interested in the role that you have.
Great. Great. Thank you, Joe. So I have one question. Shankar Tharoor and Harshita, they have both asked about assessment tools. What are some of the assessment tools that helps organization understand current knowledge base of the employees so as to develop an L&D plan? And I have from Shankar, like Rajdeep, when you said that the organization started using having one round of assessment, which is critical, is it a written assessment?
Uh, Look, assessment. I'm a very very big fan of assessments and automating some of the filtrations that we typically do manually. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, it's not a written assessment. You have assessment tools offered by different organizations. There are, I think, some of the uh, big organizations who have come up with pretty comprehensive tools which are available in the market today. Um, the intent here is that you have a considerable amount of talent on top of the funnel. You have a huge volume. What we should always look at is that, is it worth, for your interviewers, who are of course your business leaders or who are your business folks, to spend so much of time screening so many people at the top of the funnel. And it's the I would say the we should put that effort to bring that funnel down and have the more effective talent pool, which is relevant for the role and for you, and put them across through the funnel till the end. So I would say, yeah, answering to this question, is it a written assessment? No, it is an online assessment. It can be it can be a multiple question assessment. It can be a narrative. There are multiple tools, so it depends for which job role you're hiring for.
Okay. Okay. Joe, I have one question.
Mhm.
Joe or Rajdeep, whoever wants to answer. And is a technical understanding of tools required for today's recruiter? And what courses should we do to get ourselves updated? Uh, just Joe or Rajdeep. Yeah.
That's a really good question. Um, to a certain extent, I do think some sort of technical understanding by recruiters is needed
Mm-hmm.
for, as it applies to the tools that we use,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, it's going to make yourself more efficient at your job, should you understand those tools. And then, if you're, again, like a technical recruiter, I guess an understanding of the environments that you're hiring into will most certainly help you be more efficient.
Mhm.
I think that curiosity around what can we do to find the untapped talent, right? One
Yeah.
of the things that we deal with in recruiting is competition. We're probably all recruiting people that are highly sought after by multiple different companies, right? So the
Mm.
ability to find the attractive talent that you want first is important. Learning how to whether it's run campaigns against those people and automate your reach outs that way, or find different tools and tricks. Like some people on my team are going back to something that's actually pretty old, like X-ray searching sites where people might not show up on your LinkedIn, right? Because oftentimes when you're searching just through LinkedIn, you will get caught in the same algorithm as everybody else. So learning and understanding technology and learning how to navigate that will pay certain dividends, as well as really niche skill sets that you're looking for. Maybe your hiring teams are coming to you with requirements that you've never really heard before. Knowing how to go out and find those types of people will help you save time, frustration, and also create great partnerships with the people that you're hiring for, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also adding to that, I think we see a lot of hackathons happening, a lot of coding challenge happening, a lot of case challenges happening. I think we can also look at, sometimes what happens, these hackathons and coding challenges can become a little kind of stereotype. You tend to repeat questions,
Mhm.
and there is always an opportunity for overlapping, etc. But what you can do is that you can pick up a real time business challenge that you may have in your organization, right, and put that up for a solution, and ask people to solve it. That'll be a unique way to, and you can of course gamify. You can how you market it, how you basically bring the entire competition that Joe just mentioned. So you make people compete. I think these are playing with the candidate psychology and encouraging them to engage with you.
Great. So I have a lot of questions I can see, but let's finish it off with the last question. So one question I have is, how can HR collaborate with leadership to develop a proactive approach to retain employees and team members versus a reactive approach? So I both of you like one by one can take up this question as the last question. So yeah, so anybody can start. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I can kick it off. I think what we've talked about in the discussion so far is really promoting L&D from the beginning of the process
Hmm.
before the person is actually an employee, right? So
Hmm.
I think that this comes back to leadership, right? It does nobody any good to have this wonderful L&D platform and this technology if it's not supported, if you're not telling your employees to take it up, to explore what they can do next, and really utilize it. So I think this is where it does come back to HR and really communicating with the leaders that are having day in and day out conversations with the employees, and reminding them of what's possible, and really tapping into the resource that you've set up for them. Otherwise, if you're not doing that from the beginning, then you as a company are going to put yourself in a reactive situation when somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I've been tapped for this other opportunity that I'm going to go do because I don't feel like I have the growth path that I need here at this company. So it really in order for it to work, I think it really has to be something that's contiguous from
Hmm.
candidate journey through employee journey. And I think the guardians of that process are the leaders that are going to be leading your company. So really evangelizing and communicating the importance of this for employers to the leaders is something that's very important and needs to be constant.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, in addition to that, I think it's the same. I completely agree, and I mean, there's nothing new to add. But I think HR can, of course, share a lot of intelligence with with the leaders, with the business leaders, and sometimes we have seen that um, you should also kind of educate the leaders with certain L&D, how to retain talent, how to retain their employees, because we have seen operationally when it comes to business, when business leaders gets too engaged with the outcome of the business goals, sometimes it becomes a little kind of unfair to people. They tend to kind of lose on certain small softer aspects. I think regular connect with the employee, understanding, conduct a kind of an EWS, which we generally call early warning system, create a mechanism where you keep on highlighting and passing on some critical data to your business leaders and guide them. I think that's the only proactive approach that we can take,
Mhm.
and also help business to take the right decision. Right? I mean, and sometimes they also need help and guidance from HR, because HR would typically look at the situation from a neutral point of view.
Great. So that will be all. So I am getting more questions, but we will send it over to you over email so that you can answer them. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Rajdeep, for joining in, taking a time out of busy schedule and like joining this round of discussion with me. Shalini had to unfortunately drop off, but yeah, thank you so much for taking time out, and thank you so much, members, for coming and joining in. See you. Have a great day. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarbojit, for having us.
Thank you, subject. Pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure.